Hey investors, Bradley here from Watson Estates, and you're listening to the largest, fastest growing podcast for Toronto real estate on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Now, maybe you've recently become an investor, you've been doing it for some time, and you know the old story. I'm going to find myself a realtor. They're going to be great. It's my aunt, my uncle. They're going to go out and they're going to find me distressed properties. We're talking estate sales, foreclosures, ooh, fancy word. But they let you down. They sent you automatic listings that get dripped to your email that you just don't want to cancel because you don't want embarrassment of telling your family you suck. Well, this void has been filled by people called wholesalers. And what they're doing is they're going out and finding distressed properties. They are the we buy your house type of business. And we have one of the largest here in the GTA with us today, Aaron Moore of housedealsgta.ca. He's a great guy and also willing to explain to us how wholesaling works, what that assignment looks like. So if you are new or want to get introduced to this new type of investing and some of the pitfalls and things you're going to want to keep in mind, you're going to want to check this podcast out. Now, I'm happy at any time to answer questions if you want to leave them in the comments below. And as usual, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're going to continue to put out fantastic content, all the while also with the bell for notifications so you don't miss another beat. Enjoy this interview, guys. Hi, Aaron. How you doing?
Bradley, doing great and pleased to be here.
We're so glad to have you. And I know on our podcast, we're constantly up to date with what's going on in the market, but we also have a huge list of investors that are constantly looking for new options on how to maybe grow their portfolio. And I thought, well, we haven't talked a whole lot about wholesaling yet. And we've seen some of these deals coming through our office as well, but I'd love to have a guest like you who has years, in fact, over a decade of experience in the field to let us know a little bit about it. So before we jump into the specifics about wholesaling and the types of opportunities available today, maybe you can dive a little bit into your history, tell us how you got into it and how it's been working for you.
Sure. Like I jumped into real estate investing probably like a lot of people. You start with one property, you don't know much, you got to learn. You grab a book, go to some networking events. It started, the seed started, I just happened to know someone who had a little experience, a couple properties. I picked up some rich dad, poor dad books, and they had one specifically about real estate investing, picked that up and said, all right, now I can buy a house. So this was back in my 20s. I bought, well, first my brother bought a house, moved his housemates, we were living with housemates at the time. He moved his housemates in with him. Then several months later, I bought a house and we kind of supported each other, with down payments for the house. And you got creative, pull from my line of credit, this and that, to get our 5% down payment. And so we each bought a house within several months, let's say. And we were doing the same strategy, living there, renting out rooms to our housemates that we were already living with anyways. Mine happened to be like a 2-unit. It was in the Junction area of Toronto. So I really, this was, 2004 I bought. So that was the time the Junction was really taking off. And every year we kept seeing it getting better and better. So definitely a good time to buy. So I had 2 properties. I wish I had learned faster, but after a few years, you kind of see equity go up, the mortgage pay down, so the mortgage goes down, I'm making rent, the tenants are paying my bills. I said, I got to do more of this stuff. So then I started learning more, going to real estate networking meetings, learned about things like wholesaling, finding these deeply discounted private deals, doing marketing to attract motivated sellers. So I started doing it myself, and here I am, many years later, still doing it and having a good time.
Awesome. So as many of the listeners know, I am a buy and hold guy through and through. I don't do too many fixes and flips, but there's absolutely, if you were to break it down, there's 2 sources of, you can either collect your income from the rent and get the capital gains, or you can collect your income from the fix and flip. So having wholesaling speakers on our podcast opens us up to that type of investing, which is great. So maybe we should intrigue everyone with the types of discounts that you get. What kind of offers when you're approaching someone in one of these scenarios are you submitting? What kind of plus or minus to the fair value do you typically see?
Sure. Let's just say rough numbers, 80% of our deals are fixer-uppers. There's other ones where, we're buying at a discount. It's usually just someone needs something, a fast sale or some reason. They just want a private, off-market, fast, something like that, where they give a significant discount for a nice property. Well, the majority are fixer-uppers. So there is that area of expertise in the renos. Your cost, my cost, someone else's cost is very different for any type of rental. And everyone has some ideas of how to renovate this property, and increase the value. So a big part of it is keeping the rental costs low, but also increasing the value through your rentals. And sometimes the day one when you're buying, like I remember one house, I thought I was going to make 20, 30K flipping it, right? But then with the Toronto crazy market, I make 100K, whoopsie, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of it's just the spring market. Some of the spring markets, they just jump up over last year, a crazy amount. So you ride some of these things, you end up making really big chunks on your flips. But we are also there's the case where you're buying with some discount. You got to factor in a reasonable profit, and then you get that surprise upside with these bidding wars, and things just sell for way more than you thought, and you get to pat yourself on the back for being so smart. But then there's the other ones, like you kind of know, you do your numbers, and you're going to make a good chunk of money just based on what it is. And because often that's because the seller shoots their mouth off and says a low price, and you're like, yippee, that's a great price, I'm there, I'll buy it, no problem. So if a seller, these are often people who own for a long time, the house is a dump, often they feel bad because they've let the house run down. They're part of the problem, and there's a ton of factors going on why they're selling at a big discount. But the reality is we're the people who can move fast, give them special things like letting them stay after closing. Often we buy sooner, get them the money, funds sooner, so they can, do what they need to do with money. Because sometimes they have, one guy, I remember him telling me he had like 16 cents in his bank account. So, like we were there to give him money and give him time to buy another property, give him time to move, and just make his life easy. Like that's what we're here to do. So we are getting some, I can look in hindsight and say, yeah, I bought that at 50% of what I sold it for, but there's also a good chunk of rental costs going in there and different things like that. So there's some pretty big discounts.
So just to give an example to our audience, as we're kind of working through here as well, explaining what wholesaling looks like, I've got clients right now who are in, just as an example, personal example, who are in a very high pressure situation because they actually have a tenant in the unit, and the tenant is very savvy and knows their rights and they'll hold to their rights and make it very difficult to do things like showing. So we had an open conversation with them about this idea of maybe going the wholesaling route is an option, or at a minimum, forget calling it wholesaling, calling it something like an assignment or a cash deal, putting the money in their pocket right away, either assuming or kicking out the tenant because we have a firm deal, we're legally allowed to do it, and then turning around and selling that contract on the market, which really describes wholesaling. Now, this particular client wanted more money. They were willing to take the risk with the tenant and navigate showings in order to put it on the open market to get more attention for their property and get a little bit more. However, there are scenarios where they say, to hell with it, I want out, right? I'm getting divorced, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And they're open to a cash offer. And that's where guys like you can step in and be a middleman if you can find someone to pick up that contract from you on the other side without seeing it, or without doing an appraisal, or all the things that are less invasive into the property. And you get a bit of a return, but also you're getting heavy discounts that are worked into a discount for that buyer as well. So that's kind of the way that works. And it really, if another word for wholesaling really is assignment, which is assigning the contract. Now, can you explain, just so that I stop talking for a little while, for someone who hears the word assignment, I think we hear the word assignment more so right now for pre-construction, right? I'm going to buy a condo and I'm going to assign it to somebody else. Could you maybe explain to us the difference? Or if I'm buying a assignment pre-construction, is it the same thing? Maybe a little bit of that to explain it better.
Yeah, it's very similar. Like an assignment is an assignment, and it's really a legal concept. It can apply to your contract on something else too. Like, I don't know, in theory, your cell phone contract could be assignable, but I'm sure it says something like it's not assignable in the contract. So, but yes, what we're doing is very similar to what's happening with new construction, new condos. but we are, we operate typically in the resale, probably 90% resale market. So we are signing the paper. It's like, we're buying the house, which means the paperwork is signed. We have the agreement to buy the house. And then we can, once we've got that contract, we can, choose what we want to do. Do we want to buy it ourselves? Do we want to offer this to our investors? And if we offer that to our investors, we're selling our assignment. So we're assigning the contract to them. It's also called wholesaling. They're paying us a fee to buy this deal. And our company, we do basically, unless we say otherwise to the seller, we're willing to buy every property we put under contract. If we can't assign it to someone else, we'll close on ourselves because, we like to stand behind what we're doing. And that's why, that's why the sellers are going to come to us, because we're offering a kind of superior service. We're going to close fast and do what we say.
So to close out with the seller side, how do you find these sellers? Like, where do you get your tip for these high pressure need to sell right now deals?
When we're talking wholesaling, the business of wholesaling, it's really a huge part of it is a sales and marketing company. So over the years, we've sent out hundreds of thousands of mail pieces, like direct to houses. We've done a ton of internet. We over the years, we just built up our internet presence. So we do a lot of internet advertising. If I can go back over the decade plus I've been doing this, I've tried to, newspaper ads, the outdoor bandit signs, all different types of things, right? Some things are more scalable than others. And, the favorites are, the letters, the flyers direct to houses, and my online presence, because we've grown that over the years. So, you can look up our website, Google GTA house buyers, and you can find, lots of content we've put out over the years and just more builds every month.
Beautiful. And if there's anyone who wants to research wholesaling anymore, we actually did have Matt McKeever, who's big on YouTube, talking about and educating people on how to get into wholesaling and what that looks like. So you guys can check that out if you want as well. So let's go, before we get into finding me a deal, which is I'm sure what a lot of people are looking for here, let's talk a little bit about the market. Now, obviously with COVID, it's changed some things up a little bit. How have you noticed, has it been any increase in the power of sales? Have you noticed it's pulled back because of the deferral? Like what has been going on in your world these days?
Yeah, it's been a different ride over this COVID year. Actually, so, evictions had been stalled, right? But, evictions are back, because I went to one. I got to attend one because the seller called me panicked the morning of the eviction. Just, it was a few weeks ago up in Innisfil. So yeah, I was there when the sheriff was there, and the sheriffs were nice. They gave time for me to come see it, see the house we might buy, and just give the seller a little more time. But they don't have much time because they got escorted out and the locks were changed, and I was there. I get to witness this occasionally. So evictions are back, and it's happening more. I think the more this mortgage deferral stops, the more these government support stops or winds down, the more problems we're going to see come out. But it's happening now, and we're getting the calls from our marketing of people in trouble. I can think a lot of different examples in different situations. But with just due to COVID as well, there's the issues of this virus and people wanting the easy way to sell. So we had in the past several months one example, a condo in Toronto. The seller was in a different province, but his senior mother was living there, and he didn't want showings and all this hassle and this sort of thing. So we had no problem selling at a discount just to get the one showing sale basically. And actually we actually we're doing more, especially thanks to COVID, doing more buying sight unseen. So if the property is easy to understand or based on what the seller tells us, we'll give an offer that works for us and hopefully works for them based on what they're telling us, and maybe some pictures, something like that. So, for that condo example, that is what we did. We signed the agreement without even seeing it, but just based on some pictures. Of course, we went to see it after, we had a little inspection and that sort of thing. But we do offer the easy way to sell.
Right. Yeah, and when you're talking, so this idea of the market's going up 100,000, we were joking about it a minute ago, right? Like I just so happened to fall upon 100,000 return. Look at me, woohoo! Now in COVID, that's not necessarily the case, right? There's opportunities in our market where maybe it still is the case, but there's a lot where that's not. And I know, like we had Patrick Francie, who is the president or CEO of Rain on our show, and they have reports they put out, and they do say right now fix and flips and rent to owns are a more challenging business in this real estate pricing climate. So you've got your work cut out for you. So has it had you leading to a pause? It sounds like you're expanding maybe into different markets. I'm curious how that's maybe affected your business.
Yeah, Rain is across Canada, right? GTA, as far as condos are a little slower from my perspective than low rise, freehold type houses right now. So anything we're selling, kind of your starter homes, townhouses, semis, detached, things on MLS are selling like hotcakes right now. We're seeing multiple offers. Condos are slower. It's COVID related. People aren't that thrilled with this apartment building, high rise living anymore. So they're moving to, they want their space, which is fine. But so yeah, fix and flips. You're selling and making crazy profits if you're selling right now. That's what I'm seeing. I'm in mostly the GTA, but I'm talking Waterloo region. I'm talking within a couple hours of Toronto, and it seems hot everywhere as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into buying some discounted house. So here I am. I got my money, and I want to buy something. So with you and all your experience as an investor, where would you say is the fastest way to get the most discounted property in the GTA right now?
The fastest way. I've always been, if you want to buy a discounted property and you kind of know the area, the type of property you want, then you better write yourself up a letter. You better send it to a bunch of houses and tell them what you're looking for and what you can do and what you want to buy. I've done a lot with think of the bungalow-y type houses, those older neighborhoods with the bungalows you can easily turn into 2 units. I've certainly enjoyed sending letters to those types of neighborhoods, letting them know I want to buy and telling them, I am looking for the fixer-uppers, telling them what I'm looking for. And I've, bought a lot of houses from letters and specifically in the neighborhoods I want to buy. Because the thing with houses is we know where they are. So if you know what kind of house you want, you know how to target it, right? Sometimes there's some catches like, of course, if the house you want to target is rented and the owner doesn't live there. So that's, there's things like that. But a lot of the times, the house you want to buy, you know where it is, and often the owner lives there. So that would be the easiest, more direct way.
Awesome. So you as a wholesaler, that's really what you do. You've made that a living, that type of environment. So are you picky when you're approaching these homeowners, or is there something specific you're looking for? Or are you just looking as an investor for the best price? What is it you want?
Yeah, we're really looking for that. We need some sort of discount. We're not here to replace realtors. We're not here to offer top dollar. We're here for people who want, it's really the fast, easy sale. There's either problems with the property, problems with the person. The person has a lot of personal challenges. The traditional way of, fix your house, clean it, stage it, list it, do that whole process, take time to show it, and then get offers, and then, wait a couple months for that buyer to close on it. That is not for everyone. That's for the majority, but it's not for everyone. There's people, their life situation, or maybe it's just their dumpy property, isn't cut out for that. So we are here for this niche market. It's a minority of people, but these are people with some challenges, and they want to avoid the typical.
Yeah. And I know we've got a ton of listeners that follow our channel that are brokers and agents across the GTA, just again, staying in touch for the sake of the market. And if I were to take a poll, the majority of them, I would guarantee you, would not want to talk to a wholesaler. And I think it really reminds me when my daughters were born of this fight between the nurses and the midwives. And it's like everyone is fighting for the same business, but I think it's a joke because at the end of the day, if the baby comes out, we've got a happy investor, we all win. So what I would recommend or highly encourage the realtors especially to do is to get connected with wholesalers, because in many ways they can bring investment properties to you. And I guess this is the challenge is, are you really servicing an investor or are you just buying and selling real estate? But for those who want to grow their business, get into investor clients, wholesaling is a great platform to do it. And I make it, my perspective on wholesaling is akin to like the West, the Wild West. They're going out there, they're finding the deals, and they've got contracts in their hands, but we do as buyers would have clients we can bring there, but also protect them, right? Because as in the assignment deal, the person that's transferring the ownership over has an interest, and it's their own interest mostly, but they also have opportunities that we as agents can share and bring to our clients. So I would recommend people who aren't an agent to find someone who has relationships like these, and aren't afraid of wholesaling. And I get questions from investor clients all the time about wholesaling. So I think it's welcomed. Maybe you want to say a few words to people in the real estate sphere.
Certainly. Yeah, like we pay realtors handsomely quite regularly for bringing buyers to our deals. And yeah, I think, the beauty of our deals, like right now, the MLS is madness in certain areas. We see 10, 20, 30, like my wife's a realtor. So she had 35 offers on a little townhouse, a few weeks back. So like there's some crazy stuff. Look, so why, do you want to spend your time on this 20, 30 multiple offer scenarios? We are wholesalers. We're all about speed. So, there's a real short, a deal comes up, there's a short time window for whoever wants to act. We're not, I wish I could get 10 offers on a property, but it ain't happening. So, so if you want to avoid all that nonsense, that's why realtors like to bring the clients to us, and we, of course there has to be a margin to pay the realtor whatever they want. Hey, if they want 3%, they can add that. It doesn't matter. 3%, 2.5%, whatever. It's just, you got to work out the net numbers, right? But yeah, realtors love working with us because it avoids a lot of that, craziness that's going on right now. And especially if you're a realtor with fix and flip investors, and also we do a fair bit of the 2-unit conversion. So it could be the bungalow or different types of houses, but you make that basement apartment. So we do find a fair number of these deals, and realtors know they're not the easiest to find, especially flips. Like, finding a flip on the MLS is tough, but we find them regularly. So realtors know you're making money on the front end of the flip and on the back end. So you definitely want to know where to source a flip.
How many, just out of curiosity, you're saying your wife is a realtor. How many of these properties that you pick up do you put on MLS as assignment deals, or like as a percentage? How many have you kind of posted?
Well, we don't, like I myself, like me and my team, let's say, or me and my company, we might buy, I don't know, less than maybe 20% of our deals. So like we need to, like how I operate, I keep cash available because I always want to be able to buy.
Right.
But I certainly don't have the capacity or interest to buy every property, every good deal that comes my way. I'm in the wonderful position of having too many great deals coming my way. But that's why we wholesale them out. I don't have the capacity to fix and flip or hold all these properties as rentals. My wife and child would not like me if I tried to do all these things myself, and I haven't hired a big crew or anything. So, so we got to wholesale, and we're like majority of our deals we wholesale to other investors.
Yeah, and you can see kind of in the way you've explained it, your progression, right? You've moved up the scales as an investor to a point now where you have investors that are competing for the properties that you're delivering. And on the flip side, I would say to anyone who's shopping or looking for wholesalers, let them compete as well. It's not like you want to wait for that one email from that one company. Like, how would you recommend people can get in touch or contact various wholesalers? What's the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, I guess most of them, if you like Google something like, of course, through real estate investing groups, you'll probably find some.
Right.
But Google something like maybe fixer-upper properties, or even just wholesalers in Ontario or Toronto or wherever you're looking. You'll probably find some. And like myself, most of us have a website directed to the sellers, a website directed to the investors. So you can go on housedealsgta.ca. That's our website directed to investors, and just punch in your email there, and that way you'll get notified before everyone else. When our deals do come up, you don't have to search the internet, search on whatever the listing sites for them. Yeah, just go to housedealsgta.ca and you can get on our list. That's one way to do it. But there are other investors. We're one of the bigger ones in the Toronto and Ontario, but there are certainly others out there. I'm not saying we're the biggest or anything. There's others out there, so you can certainly find other wholesalers and get on their their priority notification list.
And it can be as simple as you're driving down the street and you see We Buy Houses, right? And call them and say, listen, I'm not looking to sell a house, but I want to get on your investor list. And it can be really that simple. And I think it's a great opportunity. The listeners that follow me, I'm a cash flow guy. I'm buying properties and we're looking for returns long-term. And we have a mailing list as well for that. But if you're looking for something a little more aggressive, you want to get into fix and flip and you want to go directly to wholesalers, that's the place to do it. So thank you for sharing your website and some insight for our listeners on. Is there anything else maybe you want to share about your company or other things we can get more information about you?
Well, housedealsgta.ca, that's a good place to get some info about us. If you want to see the seller side, just because you're curious, just go to gtahousebuyers.ca. But that's, hey, if there's any motivated sellers listening, just, go there and sell us your house too. Just call the number or fill in the form. Hey, too. But this is probably not the audience for that. I think, the main way I work with other investors and realtors is through our wholesale properties.
Absolutely.
And we love to talk with investors, so call us, call Tomomi in my office, call me or Tomomi, and we love to talk with investors.
Aaron, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming and teaching us a little bit about wholesaling. We'll see you next time.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Bradley.
Take care.